Live from ZTN studios in Harare, Zimbabwe, this is The Chase. Now, our discussion this evening, 3 years post-elections, are Zimbabwe's political parties fulfilling the promises? Good evening, I'm Owen Kaura, and this broadcast is brought to you by Zimbabwe's TV, ZTN, in partnership with the Community Alliance for Human Settlement in Zimbabwe. Now, as usual, to our viewers joining online, would like to hear from you. Join us on our discussion. Our Twitter handle is at ZTN News, and our Facebook page, Zim Papers Television Network. Please take note of that. Today it's changed a bit, so it's Zim Papers Television Network, and feel free to send in your comments there. Now, make sure your voice is heard as well. And in the studio, I am joined this evening by Henry Ngava, who is the Secretary General of the Lead Party. I'm also joined by Tafadzwa Mugwadi, Zanu-PF Director for Information and Publicity. Fadzai Mahere, MDC Alliance and National Spokesperson, as well as Francis Mukora, Research and Advocacy Coordinator with the Community Alliance for Human Settlement here in Zimbabwe. And these are in the studio, but over the phone, we also have Witness Due, who is the spokesperson of the MDC-T. Now, good evening, lady and gentlemen.
Good evening, Owen. Thank you very much for having us.
Good evening, Owen. Thank you.
A loud and clear witness on the phone there. Now, as usual, on The Chase, we value dialogue and dignity. And so I ask you to make your submissions through me. Is that okay? All right. Of course, interjections are allowed, but let's just try and keep them as civil as possible. So I'll allow you each 2 minutes to make your presentations, and thereafter I'll also allow 2 minutes for responses as well. But for today, I'll just start from a very, very simple place, and I'll start with the non-political actor in this room. And that's you, Francis. Now, there's a background to this issue. In 2018, you had a conversation with the different political parties. So maybe we want to start from there. Give us the background to that conversation that you had prior to the elections in 2018.
Okay, thanks, Owen, for giving us this, for having us here and also giving us this opportunity. So, by way of background, my organization, Community Alliance for Human Settlements in Zimbabwe, we are a social movement which is membership-based, and the majority of our members are ordinary citizens, Zimbabwean citizens, who are mostly resident in rural areas, in urban and peri-urban areas, but also in resettlement areas. We are a non-political party, but our membership is from various political parties, and they are brought together by the common need to have access to land rights, security of tenure, as well as access to housing and livelihoods. So by way of background, again, in 2018, prior to the 2018 harmonized elections, we, as Community Alliance, we went around the country collecting the views and aspirations of our members, what they wanted the parties that were contesting in the 2010 elections to be addressed by whichever political party would win the 2018 election. So we came up with a 10-point plan, which I'm just going to randomly go through. So the basic issues that came out of the consultation that we had was, first, they wanted a stop to arbitrary house demolitions and arbitrary displacements. They also wanted security of tenure on people allocated land during the land reform program. They wanted transparency and accountability in land governance, including arresting corruption in the land sector and bringing land barons to book. They also wanted regularization of informal settlement to provide security of tenure. They wanted provision of housing. They also wanted critical services such as water and sanitation facilities. They also wanted regularization of citizenship. You remember, some of our members are in the ex-commercial farming community. They also wanted regularization of citizenship, especially for those who were previously regarded as aliens. And also, generally speaking, they also wanted an economy that would function better so that everyone can have access to the socio-economic rights. So after collection of this, after this 10-point plan, we then engaged the political parties, Zanu-PF, MDC-T, MDC Alliance. Those were the major political parties that we actually engaged prior to the elections with these issues that we had gathered from the citizens. We also organized a policy dialogue discussion that was held at Sapis Trust in Belgravia. That was on the 24th of May 2018. Tafadzwa was there, he was representing Zanu-PF. There was also Senator Douglas Monzora. Then he was the Secretary General, I think, of the MDC Alliance. There was Linda Masarira. Then she was the spokesperson of the MDC-T. But we also had the Citizen Manifesto, which is another civil society organization, and also the Committee of the People's Charter, those were also giving the voice of the citizens to try and see to what extent did the political manifestos of the three political parties resonate with the issues that had been raised by them. So now, the reason we are here is to take stock now that you've already said that we are 3 years into the, we only have got 2 more years. So we want to take stock to what extent have we achieved what the political parties, MDC-T, MDC Alliance, Zanu-PF, they are in government, one way or another, either in central government or in local government, they are also in parliament. So we want to take stock of to what extent have we achieved what we sought to achieve, in fact, what they promised to the citizens prior to the 2018 elections.
And I think that's a safe place to start from. What they promised to the citizens, what have they done so far? And so the parties are here, and I'll start with you, Tafadzwa from Zanu-PF. You've heard the issues that he's mentioned. He's talked about housing, he's talked about land tenure, some of those issues. To what extent have you as a Zanu-PF gone on to cover issues that have been raised by Francis here?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Francis, for raising some of the issues which we talked about with the people in 2018 as we engaged in our long march to government. But I must say, these were, except that I should say, these were just some of the issues, but there were a lot of issues that formed part of the People's Manifesto in 2018, the winning manifesto which made us to form government. And one of those, in fact, in short, if I were just going to give you the theme of our manifesto, we campaigned in 2018 and engaged our people as Zanu-PF with our candidate President Emmerson Mnangagwa on the basis of 5 principles. Number 1, we said unite. Number 2, we said fight corruption. Number 3, we said re-engage. Number 4, we said develop. Number 5, we said create jobs. Those were the 5 themes that guided our campaign, and these are the 5 themes again which have become the verses and chapters which our government is operating within and which our ruling party seeks to achieve. And in terms of unity, I'm sure I need not say anything. Those who are aware know that this country has been able to achieve tremendous and significant strides in terms of fulfilling and moving towards Vision 2030 on the basis of the unity that we have been able to achieve with our people. You know that the cornerstone of the new dispensation and President Emmerson Mnangagwa's vision has been hinged on 2 key principles, engagement and dialogue. These should be the verses and basis of our engagement in our politics, civil political engagement, which Mr. Mwanzora, if I were to quote from him, calls rational disputation. We have been able to create a polar dialogue platform, the reason being to ensure that we end political polarization and give each other a chance to engage with ruling authorities. And we hope that even into future, as we march into victory in 2023, we are going to sustain the infrastructure of Poland as a permanent structure that creates a platform for our political parties to engage. In terms of re-engagement, you know what we have been done in terms of engaging the countries that we had challenges with, not so rose-past. Challenges happened along the way. We are now on talking terms, and I must tell you that with the European Union, we have been able to raise dialogue to an interministerial level in order to ensure that we continue to lobby for the removal of sanctions so that our economy, so that our society unites and then be able to leapfrog itself and catch up with others. So, but in terms of particular issues that is raised, I must tell you that, to create a better economy, you must have enabling infrastructures, and one of those.
You know what, Tafadzwa, we'll definitely talk more about this as the program goes on, but thank you very much for pointing out some of those issues, and we'll interrogate them as we go on with the program. But I just want to come to you, Fadzai, as well now. Now, looking at the MDC Alliance and the issues that Francis has raised, and in terms of your own manifesto, how much ground have you covered?
Thank you very much, Owen. It's important to highlight that the MDC Alliance is not the governing party at the moment. So obviously,
At what level?
At all levels.
At all levels?
At all levels,
right.
yes.
We'll interrogate those issues again as well as you move on. It's fine.
That's fine. And I'll speak to local government because I think that's what you're driving at. Obviously we had a smart city policy when we came to the electorate in 2018. And if you look at the status of local authorities as we stand now, you see that there's been a systematic attempt by Zanu-PF to hamstring the work of our local authorities. The Constitution speaks very clearly about the need for devolution, which is a constitutional imperative. We can't even debate it, and it's something that we ran on in 2018, but there's been no attempt by the state to align local government policy with devolution. So you see consistent interference by central government in the operation of local authorities when it comes to funding, when it comes to hiring and firing staff. You see that it's the minister who's the final say on who becomes town clerk, and the town clerk has all the power when it comes to running local authorities. But even more fundamentally than that, we've seen a systematic attempt by Zanu-PF and its proxies who are represented here to usurp the will of the people, to recall councillors who are lawfully and properly elected by the people, and they've, overturned our attempts to turn cities around. Just this week, we've had a series of demolitions. The MDC Alliance councillors put out a strong statement condemning these demolitions, but they were led by Tafadzwa Mguti, who's the Provincial Development Coordinator of Harare Metropolitan Province, and he's a Zanu-PF deployee. We see constantly the Minister of Local Government, whether it's through the Local Government Board or other functionaries in central government, hamstringing the work of council. So whereas we're saying stop the demolitions, put people first, promote policies that are anti-poor, Zanu-PF is doing the exact opposite. So while we have stayed true to our commitment to the people, we see a systematic attempt by Zanu-PF, which is the party that is supposedly in power, to scuttle the will of the people.
Like I said to Tafadzwa, we'll interrogate some of those issues as we go on with the program. But at the moment, we're just looking at you as a political party. What have you done in terms of your manifesto? I know that Lead, you did not participate in the 2018 elections, but Witness on the line, Witness is on the phone. Witness, as the MDC-T, in terms of the issues that Francis has raised, I'm sure you were listening to some of the issues that he was talking about in terms of tenure, land tenure, housing, some of those issues. What have you done so far for the people?
Good evening, well, as the MDC-T, I think everyone knows
if you're on, just hold on, Witness. If you're on a loudspeaker, please, may you just make sure that your phone is not on loudspeaker because we cannot hear you properly.
I'm using microphone. Is it better now?
Much better now. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay, I'm holding it close to my mouth.
Yeah, great.
So the context is that, when we got into 2018 elections, both in as two different factions, which met two different manifesto, and we've had to match those two judgments that, explain the legal entity that is the MDC-T in Parliament, our government at the moment. Basically, MDC Alliance is very much to modernization agenda, and the MDC-T led by Thokozani Kupe spoke to building an economy that sustain transformation agenda. So that's one thing in the final analysis. On the legislative front, we as a party have been pursuing an agenda aligning institutions, our laws with institutions, the 20 institutions, sort of disalignment that have been making this constitution not to fully operational in our society today. Currently, as you know, we are getting into public finance issues here, which is going to address some of those issues. Recently, the constitutional amendment that was passed, a lot of aside, try and get some things working. So the omnibus amendment spoke very much to four issues.
All right, witness, I think your line is pretty bad as well again. But in a nutshell, what he's saying is deliver, well, they're trying to deliver on some of the promises they made. Well, back then there was still one party. So that's what basically he is saying, that in terms of transformation, we are trying to deliver. But I'll come back to you now, Francis, because now the debate starts. Tafadzwa and Fadzai had already from my standing, from my point of view, they're already talking about some of the issues. Well, Tafadzwa was pointing out some of the issues that they've already covered, and Fadzai was already saying we have not been able to do this as a result of A, B, C, and D. Now, coming to you as the Community Alliance for Human Settlements in Zimbabwe, what is your position? Do you think these political parties have delivered so far? And if so, what have they delivered? And if they haven't delivered, why haven't they delivered, according to your assessment?
I think I got two, maybe or three questions, but I'll start with the question of what have they delivered, and also I'll go to the question of what haven't they delivered and why haven't they delivered. Yes. Then in our opinion, and generally speaking to both MDC Alliance and Zanu-PF, we feel that in as much as in fact, we have to acknowledge the effort that has been done by both the political parties in whatever sphere of influence that they've got control over, be it in local government or in national government. But in our opinion, and this is based on the consultation, because 2.5 years down the line, we also went back to the communities that we work with to do an evaluation to find out the extent to which the citizens, I'm not referring to them as voters, the citizens are satisfied with what they see from the political parties. And the feedback is not so rosy. Of course, there is, like I said, acknowledgement of the effort that are being made. But in terms, I'll start with, for instance, access to housing. Zanu-PF promised 1.5 million houses. The MDC Alliance, I think, promised to provide land in the peri-urban areas to create smart cities. But so far, to be honest, we haven't seen a lot of progress in that regard. So it's one area that is lacking. Citizens still want access to housing. They're still waiting on the political parties. And you know what? I think let's address that issue first, because I think it's a very pertinent issue in terms of housing. Yeah. It affects everyone across the board. Exactly. So, Tafadzwa, 1.5 million houses, where are they?
Thank you very much for that question. I must say that in terms of housing, I'm sure government has done pretty well so far in terms of providing housing for the people under the framework of public-private partnerships. And that is why you've seen that the housing model that government is coming up with, especially is led by the new Minister of Housing, which was not there, in fact, before, but which came in a few months after, in fact, a few years after the inauguration of the president after 2018. The reason was we knew that housing was a very pertinent issue and we needed to provide housing to our people according to the promise that we made. But here are the challenges that we faced, which challenges then will also in part respond to the allegations that Ms. Mahere is peddling, which are neither here nor there anyway. The issue is that when we talked about housing, we didn't say one urban housing. It is housing across communities. So when you are looking at the issue of housing, you should not look at Harare alone and then you say, because in Harare we have not seen, or some people have not benefited and therefore there's no housing. We have a housing infrastructure that is run and partnership in terms of the partnership between the NBS, National Building Society, the FBC, the banks and the Ministry of Housing, and people can afford that. There's also the housing infrastructure under the CAPS facility and the government. People are benefiting out of that. But most importantly, the biggest challenge that we faced, which I need to be very honest with, is that you know that no one here prophesied that we're going to have this pandemic of COVID-19. And in terms of investment, you know the debilitating effect that it had in terms of the plans that had been put in place. And we had to battle with long spells of lockdowns where virtually none, a variety of these functions could not perform, except that with this slight opening up, we are beginning to pick up pieces in those particular areas. But housing has been ongoing, and we need to commend the Minister of Housing. The challenge now, which we have also faced on top of the COVID-19, is land barons. And I'm pretty sure, and I'm saying this for the record, and I'm sure the listeners will take this for what it is, and those that have been duped in the name of the party or in the name of its leadership must take their issues to the law enforcement agents. We are very clear as Zanu-PF. We do not allow land barons and baronesses. But unfortunately, This has been the basis of local governance for the MDC in all its various forms and manifestations, whether Alliance or T. What we've seen is the promotion of land barons and land baronesses. Land, urban land that is open, the next day it has been taken by a quarter of gangsters, criminal gangsters from the council, involving the councillors, and that is why 2 mayors have been arrested coming from the MDC Alliance. What has been the reason? Land deals, shut the land deals that that stinks. We have been seeing those happening. It is something that this nation must fight against. Land baron zvinoreva kuti iwewe wangoona land yakashama apa uri kupanga uri kudhirabha kwawatoenda nekuda kwekuti uri kansela wakabva kuMDC wakuti ndiri kansela munomu land iri ndakutotanga kutoita pass out vanhu ndakutopa vanhu wakubhadharisa vanhu mari vachipa iwewe. Yet it is state land, it is council land, it is everyone's land. Iwo wakuti ndeyangu ini because ndiri council wakupa vanhu. Hurumende yoziva kuti aiwa pana papa sakafana kuiswa dzimba apa pafanike pachiswa dzimba kana kuti idzimba is illegal, and that is why the land commission that took place unearthed that the government lost several billions of dollars to these land barons, and they are found mostly in the MDC among its rank and file. It's documented. Wariko Zanu-PF, we need to acknowledge and be frank when we are dealing with people. We have also identified errant young people that were doing and engaging in this land baron issue, and we need to deal with it because land here kuti government ichita chip in inobatsira vanhu nedzimba yakuwanikwa kwazvitumba pamwe paiswa zvakadzara zvima land barons, mari yacho yakadyiwa pamwe ndifadzai kana kuti ndiJacob Mafume kana kuti kamuyutsiwo keZanu-PF kari kuchairman. All that mess needs to be cleared completely to ensure that housing functions start honestly. I must also, in conclusion, say on this issue of housing and land, to say that when it comes to demolitions, the worst thing that we can ever do as politicians is to be disingenuous and to be dishonest. Zimbabweans are very clever people. They know who are the seat fathers in this country. They know who are the seat fathers in Harare, in Bulawayo. They know that. They don't need to be told. They know the councillors. And also remember, they voted for these councillors. They are yours, but they voted for you. They know what they are doing. They see how they are involved in these shared land deals. And they also see the complicity of these councillors in these eventual demolitions. So we cannot try to lie to people to try to impress them out of such dishonesty. It's impossible.
Thank you very much, Tafazwa, for your submissions there. Obviously, they're pointing to you, Fadzai, in terms of the MDC Alliance. You are the ones who are running, well, that's what he's saying. You are the ones who are running the towns and the cities, well, most of them, Harare in particular, Bulawayo. So what is your response?
Well, my response, firstly, is to the effect that I'm glad that Tafadzwa acknowledges that Zanu-PF has failed to deliver on its promise of delivering 1.5 million houses to the people. We've got an acute housing crisis throughout the entire country. I'm going to start with something that he hasn't touched on at all. If you go outside the urban areas, and if you look at more remote and rural areas and agricultural land, there is simply no security of tenure for people who live there. So when you're talking of housing, you must speak to those people as well. The arbitrary evictions that continue to take place of people who were allocated land under the land reform program, there's been no attempt by the state to try and regularize and give security to those persons, and they can't blame the MDC Alliance for that. Coming more specifically to our urban areas, I mean, Zanu-PF should know by now, and Tafadzwa at his level should also know that in terms of the law, it's not councillors who allocate land, it's the functionaries in a townhouse. Yeah, so your town class, if I may,
just a small interjection.
Can I have your protection, please?
To create a situation
it's okay, Tafadzwa. Remember what I said. Yes, we'll be very honest. I'll allow interjections. Yes, I will definitely allow interjections. But just let Fadzai finish, and then I'll let you respond. Thank you.
Yeah, it's important that we, focus on the issues and the facts and not let the emotion get in the way. The critical thing when it comes to council land is that councillors don't have the power to allocate land. Anyone who's read the Urban Councils Act knows that it's not the province of a councillor to allocate land. So there's no merit or substance to that allegation whatsoever. Even if you look at the status of peri-urban land at the moment, it's the Ministry of Local Government that's controlling the allocation of that land. Even if you look at Justice Uchenna's report, the Land Commission report, Zanu-PF Zanu-PF land barons are specifically mentioned. And, you know, Tafadzwa, funnily enough, approbates and reprobates. On the one hand, he accepts that there's Zanu-PF, and in the same, he tries to blame it on MDC Alliance. The facts show that these land barons are strictly of Zanu-PF. They allocate people land at the time that they're running for election, and then thereafter, they demolish those people's homes. At the moment, it's Tafadzwa Mguti, the provincial development coordinator of Harare Metropolitan Province, who said, we're going to demolish. It's him. He made that speech, and they can't run away from it now because the seat is hot. We've always put the livelihoods of the people first. We've always pushed for anti-poor policies. We've always said that we want to rationalize the status of cities and push for excellence, but in a manner that's, you know, got humanity, and that's in accordance with the law and due process.
Well, definitely housing and land, that's a very emotive issue. And I'll be coming to you, Henry, so don't worry. It's not a two-party political show because we also have LEAD and we also have the MDC-T on the line as well. But just quickly, Tafadzwa, you wanted to respond to what she was saying before I come to you, Henry.
Thank you very much. I think the unfortunate thing is to try to play a cat and mouse game against the people who are listening and who are viewing us. I'm sure Fazai must have outgrown that. She has had that tendency, of course, for quite so long. It's one of her habits. It's unfortunate she brings it in a critical gathering like this where people, including their voters, are listening. The truth, Fazai, is it is indeed correct, as you say, that councillors have no right to allocate land. But as we are here, all of us, even in this room, we know who has been allocating land. And why I think I've been very generous enough, and why I'm so generous is because I want to speak facts and the truth. And that is why I said, the China report was very clear. And besides that, we also know from the party, we had errant elements within the party that were engaged in land baron issues. We put a stop about that. We made our position very categorical. So you can't then accuse me of being too honest by admitting where challenges were, except that your dishonesty has risen to greater and irredeemable levels, where you refuse to take responsibility of the activities of your councillors on the ground. I must tell you, my brother, this is not something new. And I'm sure if you go to the communities, and if my colleague needs to be very genuine, it is clear that MDC councillors have been engaged rampantly in parceling out of open lands to individuals, where in turn they start getting a lot of kickbacks out of as a result. The illegal sale of stains, which involved Wana Denford Ngazore, which involved Wana Jacob Mafumi, he was in court just a few months ago. The same with Herbert Gumba. The MDC has lost the councillors to this vice, but still they don't want to admit. To admit, you don't lose the value of being an honest political party if you agree that, yes, indeed, there was a challenge there, because that is the only way you can confront it. That's what we do in Zanu-PF, and this is the spirit of the new dispensation. We acknowledged, we saw a challenge. Some of our members were involved. We put a stop to that. We're very clear. Now, it is unfortunate it will become a continuous vice in the MDC Alliance. Why? Because their mouthpiece is not so honest enough to admit that certainly their councillors must toe the line, which is very unfortunate. We are never going to address this issue.
We've got other issues that we want to also look at, and I'm sure Francis will agree with me. There are lots of issues that we want to cover as well. So this is just one of the issues, housing and land. And like I said before, this is a very emotive issue. But now, yes, witness, you want to come in? Yes, you're on the line as well. You've also been accused here by Tafadzwa, saying that it's your councillors who are corrupt, who are parceling out land. So quickly, please, may you make a contribution, a witness?
Okay, Tafadzwa wants, to misdirect this whole argument by ignoring the actual situation that creates all this issue about land barons. It is central government which controls land, as Fatai rightly pointed out. But also the whole, exercise of servicing stands in order to deal with the housing problem in the urban centers is necessarily, slowed down by the government because of the way it controls how councils collect their revenue and the dispatch of the same revenue from central government to the councils for them to do their work. local authorities, Harare, Bulawayo, they cannot do anything at all without government interference. That means they cannot service stands in order to tackle the housing problem all by themselves. And the central government is always lacking somewhere in dictating the pace. And unfortunately, this seems to have, it looks like it's now a weapon for them to actually turn around to blame the opposition and say they are not doing this and that. And they are the ones that are actually creating the environment that has created the vacuum that is being now exploited by these land barons.
All right, witness. So let me just quickly, sorry, witness, let me just quickly relay your message to the guests in the studio. So basically what witness is saying is you as Zanu-PF, you are just passing the baton to the wrong people. It's you who is in control. They're saying you're interfering with the actions of local government. So I'll give you 20 seconds to respond to that.
In fact, don't be shy to give me some more, because we are the ruling party. We are responsible. We don't dodge away responsibility.
But we also need others to speak as well.
Yes, we respond.
So in terms of interference, are you interfering with local government or not?
Let me be very frank with you. This government made a commitment to fighting corruption in all its forms and manifestations, and we said in the process everyone must carry their cross. There are so many MDC councillors who are still there and serving. They have not been interfered with as they claim. Why are they still there? And why are they still discharging their responsibilities diligently? The reason is very clear. The corrupt, rotten apples must not have a place in our councils. Because remember, let me just tell you, you are also a resident. When was the last time a bin was collected from your home? When was the last time sewage pipes that at best had been dealt with?
But still the question is,
synonymous with the potholes.
What they're saying is you are interfering in the day-to-day running of the councils.
Now, this is what I'm responding to you. I'm saying potholes have become a permanent feature in Harare, and the president has declared it a state of national disaster, particularly in Harare. Okay? And then you say, how has Zanu-PF interfered with the filling up of potholes or the rehabilitation of roads? The council is taking money. It is receiving taxpayers' money. They do have it. They do their budgets, okay? But there has not been a succinct, reliable budget on roads, on sewer, on water, on everything. But so much budget on allowances, so much budgets on meetings that they do in Vic Falls and other resort towns. But the taxpayer is has been left away. And then you say that is a Zanu-PF problem. No, the first step
definitely interrogate
is to own your problem, and address it.
I'll definitely give Fadzai and Witness the time to answer that. But you know what? Henry has been very quiet. But the reason is very simple. You did not participate in the in the elections 3 years ago. So basically, from your standpoint at the moment as lead, you have been seeing this, and you're also promising people. How, in terms of housing, in terms of the land tenure, in terms of security of land, what is your position as lead?
Thank you. We have come up as lead and we have said dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue is the best way forward. What we mean when we say dialogue, it's not only in Pollard, but what we are saying is dialogue to the people, dialogue to the government, and dialogue to inter-political parties. So we have come up and we said, listen to the people. Let's come together. Let's see the way forward that we can move our country forward. Because in our councils, in our national government, there's been rampant corruption, everything. And even our policies, they are just being signed each and every day, but they're not being implemented. So what we've come up and we have said is to the people of Zimbabwe, what do you really want? And the people have gotten back to us. And
what did they say?
And the people, they want good economy that is independent of corruption, economy that is working with just a general Zimbabwean.
And earlier on, Fadzai made an allegation. She said you're a proxy of the ruling Zanu-PF party. In one simple yes or no, are you a proxy of the ruling Zanu-PF party?
No, I think that I also have a stake there. Yes. We don't operate with proxies. We are Zanu-PF. This is Zanu-PF. We are so clear. Okay, we don't work through side shows. I think this meeting has degenerated from a meeting of counter accusations and personalization. We have not spoken about the MDC Alliance because we really have nothing to do with them. We don't take cognizance.
Answer for yourself.
Unfortunately, this is the problem that we are getting in all political spheres, because someone comes and says, because you've supported Zanu-PF a good policy, then they say you are Zanu-PF. You go to and support what the MDC has done. They say that you have.
So you have spoken. We've ironed out that issue. Now, Francis, back to you. You're not a political actor, but you've got issues that you've been raising. So you see, we've just touched on just 2 issues: housing and land. And there are so many issues that you're talking about. Maybe let's just go through some of the other issues, and then the political parties will respond to us. How far have they gone in terms of delivering those promises according to their manifestos?
Okay, so firstly, just to one more comment on the issue that we've been discussing. I think we've so much focused on the urban citizen. We also forget the rural citizen. The land reform program beneficiary who still stays on the land that they do not have access to. The Chilonga villager who stays on communal land, who is facing the threat of habitat displacement. Same with another villager who is in Wange, who is potentially facing. Of course, we understand the need to try and stabilize the economy so that it works for everyone. But in the process of doing so, we also need to take into consideration and also to safeguard the security and the interests of those citizens, actually those voters from our point of view. Then we're also going to be speaking about the other forgotten citizen. That is a core component of the members that we represent. The citizens that are previously registered is Alliance. According to the report that was conducted by the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, one of the Chapter 12 commissions, I think of what we've got in excess of 2 million people who are currently regarded to as alien. Those people we promised regularization of their citizenship, but up to now it hasn't happened. Of course, I know that further interfurther may start blame apportioning. I haven't heard him blame opinion, but the point is that, in fact, all the MDCs in their various formations in Zanu-PF sit in parliament where they are supposed to be making policies, also allocating resources. But this is one issue that the citizens, those that are directly affected by that, want to see action happening.
And I think that's a very important point that it brings in, the issue of aliens. 2 million of them who have not been regularized at the moment.
That's an approximate
You are represented in terms of the Parliament and the Senate as well. You are the ruling party. So in terms of that issue that he has raised, these are marginalized people. What are you doing?
The first thing, I don't love to deal with the hearsay. It is quite very problematic, I must say. A 2 million figure that he's talking about, I'm sure that is an opinionated figure. It is not a scientific and a practical figure. As
well, is it opinionated or a scientific figure?
According to the report by the United Nations in 2008,
no.
A million. That's the United Nations. That's a United Nations report that says by 2008 there were 1.
You see, I must make this very, very open and very clear. My colleague is making allegations that on behalf of the MDC Alliance, but undercover, using the tag of a non-governmental organization. It is very dishonest. But even that, such dishonesty must not then rise to the extent of importing United Nations figures that are not, even familiar with us, that are in charge of the lead of the country. I think this is disingenuous. I can't comment on that literally. It is a non-issue. In fact, I must say, where commitments have been made, the next thing is implementation. But of course, implementation happens in modalities that becomes duties of sub-departments within government. It is not then something that you could have stampeded to do in the circumstances of COVID-19 where offices were closed. And you also know that even, we have faced 2 serious disasters, the cyclone Idai and then COVID-19, and we still have it. But then you say 2 million, to say how that figure has been come about in these circumstances, it is quite disingenuous. Then in terms of what he said with regards to villagers in Chilonga, the most saddest thing is to try to come into this room and then create a crisis on behalf of villagers in Chilonga, in Chirez, down there in Mashingo, who have no issues about the modalities that have been put in place, to ensure that they are moving to one place on the basis of negotiation, and they are engaged with governments and the traditional authorities at every level, and things literally are above board. So to then come here and purport to represent people from Chilonga, I think again, it is one such dishonesty which is unfortunate, that we are trying to feed the people of Zimbabwe on a diet of propaganda to apportion blame to Zanu-PF. No, we know what we are doing, my brother, and there's no problem in Chilonga. Yes, there were challenges at the onset when the discussions started popping about, and the approach may be that had been used then was not the appropriate one. People were engaged. They engaged with leadership. They knew how they were going to benefit from the process. They agreed, and they are working with government. Same in Wange, where he's talking about the Belfa core projects. People are engaging, and they are still discussing, and there are no prospects even of displacement. But already somebody is here coming to make an allegation of imminent displacement. I think that's dishonest. We get nothing from speaking ill about our country, most importantly, unnecessarily, and to try to speak about the situation obtaining in our republic as if we are speaking about some other republic in another planet, which is not the one which we live in. It is very unfortunate. It is a vice that is unfortunate. We need to stop that.
It brings in very important, well, allegations, I'll say, at the moment. Now, in terms of you as a political party in Parliament, in Senate, what are you doing to address such issues, especially the issues that Francis has raised here, in terms of the rural folk and in terms of marginalized people, for example, the aliens that he's been talking about? What are you as the MDC Alliance? Because you've been accused of being pro-urban and not pro-rural as well. So what are you doing to address such issues?
Thank you very much. Unlike my colleague here from Zanu-PF, or the gentleman from Zanu-PF, the MDC Alliance accepts that we have a problem with statelessness. What Francis is referring to as aliens, we don't call them aliens, but we call them stateless persons. They remain Zimbabweans. The MDC Alliance has championed this issue on a number of occasions. The Constitution is very clear that every Zimbabwean has a right to statehood, and their rights in terms of accessing registration documents must be respected. The Amnesty International report on statelessness highlighted this issue and said it's something that's troubling. So I'm surprised that someone from the so-called ruling party doesn't know about that. And in Parliament, what we've championed is an alignment of the laws that govern citizenship and all other issues to do with statelessness to be aligned with the Constitution, because it's not right, it's unconstitutional for a person not to have a state. And if you look at a lot of the persons who are living on resettled areas, people who are living in agricultural areas as well, their origins might be from another state, but they're now entitled to Zimbabwean citizenship and regularization of their position in terms of the Constitution. So that's something that we consistently champion. We don't want anybody to be left behind in as far as access to rights and dignity is concerned. The MDC Alliance was very vocal on the question of the Chilonga villages. It's not correct that we only focus on the urban areas. It's the MDC Alliance that spoke out very strongly on behalf of that forgotten community. Honorable Daniel Molokele of Wange constituency has also spoken very clearly about the citizens in that area who are also facing arbitrary eviction. We've spoken about villagers who are also in various areas in Chiadzwa, for example, who were improperly resettled. The regime has got this habit of focusing on poor villagers, displacing them arbitrarily without respect for due process. And if you look at the Chilonga issue carefully, there was a lot of cronyism and corruption involved in that. The person who is supposed to grow grass for his farms is someone who's connected to the executive. So if I may just finish, others got their chance to finish. So it's very important to highlight the fact that the MDC Alliance in Parliament has spoken very strongly against the abuse of those communities. It's spoken in favor of justice being done, due process being respected, and there should be no so-called development in those areas that displaces the citizens. We've got several displaced citizens who are not given, appropriate alternative housing, and they're not given any accordance and respect for their rights. So, and that, as you know, is a problem that's been championed by the executive. I don't like to go into a blame game, as Francis was saying, but we have to hold accountable those who've got the power to do certain things, but refuse and neglect to do so.
Witness is still on the line as well, and he's from the MDC-T. Your take, Witness, quickly.
Okay, on the issue of stateless people, stateless is the name that we also refer to them, these so-called aliens by the ruling party. I think in my preface to this interview, I was going to outline how, as a party, we are concerned about aligning our laws with the new constitution, and this is one of the topical issues that we want to make sure that it's consummated in this session of Parliament. Also included the diaspora vote, because these are people that have got rights as Zimbabweans to vote in Zimbabwe. So suffice to say, I do not want to rehash what Fadzai has just said, because I think people understand that we have got a lot of common points on that issue. But quickly to the issue about Chilonga or the rural areas, we believe that there should be development in Zimbabwe. We must not be stuck in the frame of the world where development only happens in urban areas. However, we must make sure that when such development takes place in the rural areas, in the forgotten communities, as Fadzai calls them, those communities must be the beneficiaries. However, that development would have come. They must have priority in terms of development. They must be the ones that come out as the winners, because if Zanu-PF is going to say Zimbabwe is our only home, if that is the kind of patriotism that we are going to have collectively as Zimbabweans, not legislated patriotism, but patriotism that stems from our natural stride as a people in our country, then we must see that through how we develop the poor of the poorest. We must see that by how we treat the weakest in our society, in our community. So the way in which development in Chilonga came about and was going to take place, initially I think there was a lot that was raised, and there still is a lot that can be done better than the deal that is there now. But as the MDC-T, we believe that there should be development, but the context must be that the villagers, the poor of the poor who are having that resource to their immediate exposure, must be the one that benefit more than any other person.
All right, thank you very much, Witness. Well, basically what Witness is saying is that he agrees with you in terms of calling them, well, people who are stateless, not aliens, and he is a pro making sure that they don't remain stateless. That's basically what he is saying. Then coming to you, Tafadzwa, as we just round off, because it's very clear, you promised a lot, and we cannot cover that within an hour. In terms of...
We have done a lot.
Yes, you've done a lot. You promised a lot as well. But what I'm saying is we've got a few years to the elections in 2023. Mm-hmm. So what is in store? Are you able to finish to accomplish all your promises according to your manifesto, or will they spill over into the next election?
Thank you very much. It's a question that makes me so happy, because I'm sure only time will not allow me to exhaust the things. I would have wanted, of course, to waste much of the time on what we have already completed and what we have achieved.
Please do.
We talked about food security. Where are we? On top of your voices, everyone, Zanu-PF yakashata kudla kuguta todlezhisha. Because we promised we're going to achieve food security. We have this year, 2020 to 21 season, farming season, we have produced more than 2.7 metric tons of maize grain, against what we had produced the previous season, around 900,000. That tells you exactly that we are serious people. In terms of the land issues that they are talking about, land tenure and everything, Fadzai must be honest enough, the same with my colleagues. If you know exactly what was the MDC's position on land reform and reclamation, or uniting our people with their God-given land, if you know what your position was, you know that your hands continue to be dirty on issues to do with lands. What we have done, I'm sure, is to ensure that atinga kuti wewe ivhura rako watora 100 hectares 200 hectares toti ndiwe Fadzai wobva wauya kuno wotanga kuita zvepaTwitter zve-social media hakuna munhu ari kurima kumunda, and you still want to keep that as a private property uchiti ndepangu. No, the land belongs to the state at the moment, and the idea is to ensure that there's productivity. If you don't produce, then it is not yours, because already uya akashaya munda zviri kutanga asina right yekuwana, but iwe wakawana kana usiri kushandisa, move out. That is the position. There is no going back on that. Until there is, so far, let's continue to work on that basis. Let me talk about infrastructure. We said that in terms of investment, the only way we could invite and ensure robust foreign direct investment in this country was to ensure that we have done enough on the infrastructure, revamp and revolutionize the infrastructure in this country. The roads speak for themselves. The president has put a signature on the roads. They speak for themselves. I don't need to say anything. You know what we have done to the roads in this country, except in my urban areas. Those have become the enclaves of bad roads. But I'm sure the president is going to intervene and is entering. I can tell you.
Like you rightfully said, there's a lot, right? So we're definitely going to have another conversation. I'll be going around this time. So, Francis, do you think they'll be able to, all these parties, do you think they'll be able to deliver their promises before the next election? In a minute.
I wouldn't want to say whether they're going to or they're not going to, but the onus is on them. They are the ones who are going to be seeking re-election in 2023. And it is incumbent on them to deliver on what they promised to their citizens. But like I said, I mean, Peter Fadzwa is happy. We also need to acknowledge what has been the steps, small as they may be, that have been made. And I'm going to be focusing on the one that relate to the 10 point that we spoke to. We saw recently that government actually put in place the Zimbabwe National Human Settlements Policy. It's a piece of legislation. It's a policy that we as Community Alliance for Human Settlements must actually see as an opportunity which can lead to addressing some of the concerns of the citizens, because the National Human Settlement Policy speaks about security of tenure, access to water and sanitation facilities, as well as habitable housing units for the citizens. So, yeah, we have to give it to government, to Zanu-PF on that one. But what we expect going forward is for that policy, as it stands, it's a policy on paper, on the shelf. And one of the accusations that we have in Zimbabwe is that we always have got very good policies. What you need is to be able to see that policy being put in place, being implemented.
Well, in our next installment, we'll definitely look at some of those issues that you're raising. But quickly, coming into you, Henry, in terms of what you are going to, well, you haven't even participated. So, in terms of what you hope to deliver in under 30 seconds.
What we have come up with is we have called it the Ds. We have saying depolarization of mindset of the people of Zimbabwe. What we want is a political sphere which is clean of any hate speech and violence.
I think that's a great start. Fadzai, because of our time, your response?
I just want to say that if you look at the state of Zimbabwe today, it tells a very sad story. The colleague from Zanu-PF says that, everything is going well, we've got food security. The data tells a different story. It tells a story of 2.4 million people struggling to meet their food needs according to the WFP.
And how are you going? We are rounding off the program,
I just want to be allowed to speak.
Yes, I'll allow
you gave my colleague, yes, so I should be allowed to
I'll definitely allow you to
as well.
Speak. But in terms of the question, what are you going to do as the MDC Alliance?
83, the point I'm making is we have to start at the problem. And if you look at the poverty, the injustice, the corruption, it tells an extremely sad story. As I was saying, 83% of urban households are failing to meet their food security needs, failing to feed themselves. If you look at the amount of money that's lost to corruption, according to the cartel report, it's $5 billion every single year, 100 million lost to gold smuggling every single month. There is a need for transformation. If you look at, even the policy that Francis referred to, all that it is a policy. But if you look at the life of the citizen, the ordinary citizen, he is suffering in Zimbabwe. Teachers can't afford to put food on the table. The public health system is on its knees. We've got an education crisis that they simply won't address. Now, what the MDC Alliance promises and has promised time and again is that we will prioritize the needs of the people. We will fight for better livelihoods. We'll fight for a people's government. We'll fight for constitutionalism, something that Zanu-PF and its proxies simply don't understand. We will champion the cause of the people.
Lady and gentlemen. It's very. We also have witness. Witness, can you come through? Yes.
Yeah. You know what? Zanu-PF has got this pie in the sky approach to issues.
You've got 30 seconds, witness.
2030. We are talking about bread and butter issues now and the level of urban poverty. in Zimbabwe speaks volumes. You cannot have so much urban poverty and then have people living well in the countryside, as Tafazo Mkwadi wants us to believe here with his, statistics on how much harvest has been there. The fact of the matter is that the quality of Zimbabweans' lives is way, way below what Zanu-PF promised, what we promised, what everyone wishes for.
I think that's a good place to end the conversation for tonight. We'll definitely have a second installment. Thank you very much, Witness. So what Witness was basically saying is, as the MDC-T, they're also looking at bettering the lives of Zimbabweans in terms of whether they be it with Zanu-PF or with the MDC Alliance. What they're looking for is bettering the lives of Zimbabweans. And I think I speak for, unfortunately, I always have the final say.
But let me, just 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
I feel Zimbabweans who are listening feel insulted by the declaration by the spokesperson of the MDC Alliance, Ms. Maira, that they are in hunger and starvation. Let's go to the people. The people will judge us, but I invite you to be part of the
Your 10 seconds.
Yeah, my 10 seconds is that Zimbabweans are suffering, the shrinking democratic space, people are starving, the education crisis, teachers aren't even teaching in schools, the public health crisis, affordable healthcare simply out of the reach of everyone, constitutionalism, look at the constitutional crisis that we face today. All of it tells a story of rotten, corrupt conduct by the Zanu-PF government. They failed.
Your 10 seconds done. Your 10 seconds.
My 10 seconds is that further interfurther, we will still continue to engage with you, and as political parties, we will still continue to come. We started this engagement way before the 2018 elections. We will still continue to come to you and going forward even into the 2023 elections.
And we'll end with you, Francis. That's a good point there. Now, you've been watching The Chase. 3 years post-elections, are Zimbabwe's political parties fulfilling promises? This broadcast was brought to you by Zim Papers TV network ZTN in partnership with the Community Alliance for Human Settlement in Zimbabwe. Many thanks to our guests. Thank you very much for that lively debate. And of course, many thanks to you for watching and interacting with us. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms. Good evening.